Oh, it says I'm live, but
I thought we were live.
I am.
Hey, y'all.
Hadn't realized I pushed the button.
We're just fiddling with tech this morning. Starting us live here.
Okay.
Ready? Good morning, everybody. I'm Melissa Nelson with Waldorf Essentials, and this is...
I'm Eric Nielsen, and you get to see me today, but you don't always get to see.
It's lovely.
Because we're talking about dad stuff today.
Dad stuff, like dad interviews and why that is important. And I think that when we homeschool, and I think in general too, but I think that especially when we homeschool, we have, mom's responsible for so much stuff that often dad doesn't sort of know where he stands. And I think that dad interviews are really important anyway, whether you homeschool or not. And I think that dad interviews are really important anyway, whether you homeschool or not. And so hopefully as we're talking about that will become apparent. But I think especially when you're homeschooling, because I feel like I said, I feel like moms are doing so much of the teaching generally. I know you and I share, but like in general, moms are doing so much of the teaching that dad often doesn't know where he fits.
Yeah, and sometimes he doesn't know where he fits. He doesn't know exactly what's going on, and he doesn't know where to start figuring out what's going on.
Right, and I think that can like sort of walk down the road of contention if one's not careful.
Yes,
I think that it's really about keeping everybody closely knitted together, and really making sure that dad knows what's going on.
I mean, we've had situations where we've talked to families where the dad wasn't totally on board with what was going on in the first place, and then he doesn't understand it or why, and then he goes to work, and people go, "Well, my kid did this in school," and it's like, "Yeah, well, I don't even know."
Right, and so I feel like it, I think to a lot of dad's credit, a lot of people that we work with, dad will say, if that's your domain, you deal with that. It's not a big deal. I don't want to worry about it. But I do think that creeps up when dad goes out into the professional world and he hears Johnny over here is playing baseball and can read Harry Potter and he's 5. And, this guy over here is, they start to hear it. And so I think it's important to continue to be on the same page always, to continue to have those conversations about what that means with regards to when dads are coming home with those questions. But I also think it's super crazy important that the kids are talking to just you.
Yes,
because they spend a lot of time talking to us.
Because you hear a lot of "Hey mom, hey mom."
That's like Soraya's favorite 2 words. I'm like,
do you want to know something?
So this is what I said last night.
Can I ask you a question?
I know. Can I ask you a question? You're going to ask it anyway. I don't know why you're asking me if you're going to ask me a question. Last night I was getting ready. Our oldest daughter doesn't live here and she's ill. And so I was going to help her. And I walked out of the door and I said, I can't say it because she'll do it. I said, Alexa, will you please play The Sound of Silence by Simon Garfunkel? Sorry, I was very confused.
It's like, I don't want to hear that.
Did you get through the whole song?
Yeah. And I made her listen to it again.
That's funny. Yeah. Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Because she gives running commentary right now about everything.
She does.
She went years going nonverbal.
Yes, she was nonverbal for a long time.
Now she's making up for it.
Yeah. So back to dad interviews. Yeah.
So I mean, one thing about that is kids are kind of in different places at different times, and sometimes they're more receptive to mom about things, and sometimes they're more receptive to dads about things. I mean, in Soraya's case, she didn't want to have anything to do with anybody that wasn't mom for the first
probably 5 years,
and now she's like an equal opportunity ambush hugger.
You don't even have to be a parent to get ambushed by her.
No, there's all sorts of people.
There's some young men at church that are 15 years old that she has just decided that they are like her brother and she will hug them. It doesn't matter what's going on.
I'm like, who is this kid?
Yeah. No. Excuse me.
And there's things that a child will tell one parent they wouldn't tell the other,
Right.
and vice versa.
And I think that that's why dad interviews are so important. I think that we learn so much in the interview. We also talk about having family counsel, and usually that's when we do the dad interviews, is right after family counsel. But that doesn't have to be the time. I mean, you spending one-on-one time with a child doesn't have to be this like big, oh, we're going to go out and do something. It can be a 3-minute interview, a 5-minute interview, just a short bit of time, as I think that those little bits of time add.
I mean, and it could be something as formal as, oh, we're going to go in this room and close
Right.
the door
And it has
sit
been
in a
like
chair.
that for us at times, but it doesn't always have to be.
And then there can be times where it's like you're working on something together.
Right, for sure.
And finding those times, like those opportunities to have those conversations.
Marjorie says, my 10-year-old was a late speaker and now is very verbal. Also, he also asks, can I ask a question? Despite being told for 2 years that he can just ask the question. I'm like taking the going, well, you're going to ask me anyway. So I'm not sure why you're asking if you can ask me. So I'm going to stop you from talking if I say no.
Then we had to put a ban years ago on the rhetorical question.
Yes.
Like, why are you asking that when you know the answer?
Yeah, right.
Or they eavesdrop on a conversation and then ask you a question about it. And it's like, well, you wouldn't even have asked us that question if you hadn't eavesdropped.
That is so alive and well.
And if you had eavesdropped to get the information to ask that particular question, you already know the answer. So you told me this now that you're eavesdropping on our conversation, and you're trying to make it look like you didn't. Right. But you want to talk about what it is.
They're learning they're learning about communication. I think that's what that's all about. So, what things do you like to cover in dad interviews?
Well, I try to get kind of a baseline as to how things are going and what things can be doing better. If there's things that they think that they could do better or we could do better.
Yeah, because I think that it's a good time to sort of also like take in a grievance. Like, I wish you and mom would X, Y, and Z. That's a good place for that conversation.
Yeah.
Not in the family meeting when everybody's there and then it turns into a fight, but definitely in a more closed setting where it's just you and one parent. And because I've always wanted our kids to be very open with us, honest with us, having questions, they want to challenge things, but it's about like going about it in the appropriate way. See, Nicole says, we recently started, but my 8-year-old feels awkward and doesn't want to because she feels on the spot, but dad isn't sure how to kick off the dad interview. Any tips on how dad can covertly start an interview or sneakily start it so that she doesn't get a deer in the headlights? Yeah, I think that it's about just having a conversation. I think that's part of it. It doesn't have to be super formal. We've done it both ways. We've done it formal. We've had years where we've, like now I think our interview time it's definitely less formal, but you're getting more of it because we only have 2 kids in the home.
Yeah.
But
there's because we live in this very walkable community right now, there's different parts of somewhere in the vicinity of the 3-block radius where they remember like conversations we had like behind the Rite Aid.
Oh yeah.
Around or
the Rite Aid.
Yeah. Or
that's where they learned about Mac Tonight. Do y'all know about Mac Tonight? Anybody else as old as we are?
I showed them a picture, and I don't know what I was thinking of the old McDonald's commercial with the man that had a moon head, and they were very fascinated with it, and they asked me all these questions, and they're like, that's the steps where Dad talked about Mac Tonight. And it's like, they're going to remember that when they're 40, the Rite Aid.
They are going to remember, and they're going to remember all of those conversations.
And that was a silly conversation.
Right, but I think that it's very, Nicole remembers it. I think it's very important to consider all of the things that we are saying to them and how we're saying it, and opportunities to break down the not the official parent-child situation, but to be a little more relaxed. So, but then at the same time, we've had interviews that have had to be for disciplinary purposes.
Yes.
And so those interviews go quite differently than
Yes.
the more fun. I would say Nicole and your husband, Nicole and Nicole's husband, just relax. Unless it's a disciplinary issue, then just go and have fun together. Like, hey, I'm going to the grocery store. You want to come with me, kind of thing. And then he brings her with him. Or, hey, you want to go grab some ice cream? Or whatever it may be, but it's just the two of them. And it's not don't make it a thing. Don't make it we have to do this daddy-daughter date or this daddy, this, because we're actually not huge fans on the wording of that whole date thing for children, because they think that it mixes them up and puts them where they think they're on equal playing field with whoever else you're dating. And we're dating each other. They're not an equal playing field. But yes, you can come along, or hey, let's go do this together, and sort of have dad time. That's what we end up calling it a lot, is dad time.
Yeah.
Let's see. Rhiannon says, I would love to understand about the achievement-based success. I hear a lot from women that it's important for their husbands that their kids have things to show from their learning, or that where'd it go? Or that they be the top at something, or that the children get chosen to go to a state in something. If achievement-based success isn't as important to the mom, how would that conversation go? That's a really good question. I don't think that achievement-based success isn't important to mom. I think that we think about it differently. And maybe it's because we're the ones in the thick of it. Maybe it's because we're the ones that are, helping them day in and day out. And so when we see achievement, we're seeing these measurable spaces. We're not looking for this smaller space. And so I think that I definitely think that it's worth, if you're in a situation like that with your partner, that you have the conversation okay, I see these kids every day. I see these achievements that they're making. You would like them to be here, and I'm seeing all the steps that it's taking to get there. And so do you want to help me with those steps? Because that would be fabulous if you want to tell me with those steps, and then ask dad for things that he can do. If he's saying, hey, I'm expecting this achievement, then I think it's very appropriate to say, well, okay, that's great, but I'm going to need your help. Because let's be real about it. If you have a child in a public school setting who is needing to meet the same achievement, guess what? Both parents are going to have to be involved. Both parents are going to have to be pushing this child, or pulling this child along, or being a cheerleader along the side of the child. It's not going to just be mom. So I think that it's important to look at anything like that and go, okay, well, if this child were in a different school setting, how would it go? It wouldn't just be mom. It would be both parents. So you have to, if dad puts you on the spot, or if dad is expressing this, then I think dad's got to pony up and be like, all right, well, what can I do to help?
Mm-hmm.
Don't you?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine it going well any other way.
No.
Because it has to be a group effort. It has to be a group effort. And so, I have some homeschool friends whose sons and daughter all play Little League. I was thinking, so there's a girl in there too. I'll play Little League, and they're playing travel ball right now. And so they have, out of the 3 kids, there's 1 kid that is incredibly talented, crazy talented. And so they're all going. But guess what? It's a mom and a dad thing. It's not just a mom thing. So everybody has to work together. I think that the idea that achievement doesn't mean as much to mom is different. Because I will always say, especially with my adult children, I just want you guys to be happy. I want you to be happy. And if this achievement or this non-achievement is making you happy, great. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for happy individuals who contribute to society. And if that means that they are Rhodes Scholars, great. If that means that they aren't, that's fine too.
Yeah.
But I think at every turn, no matter what we're looking at and what we're talking about, it has to be both of you. It has to be both parents.
It does.
And I think that there's this misconception that when they're at home and you're homeschooling, It's just mom. And so there's all this pressure on mom. And really, I think the best thing for dads is to be able to step up and go, it's again, the sexiest words a man can say. What can I do to help?
Well, and there's things that even if the husband or one of the partners is gone all day, there's still opportunities
Absolutely.
to participate in the homeschooling process.
Right. Absolutely. When you worked outside the home, you participated. I think that's I think it's so important to remember, hey, dad can read with kids. He can talk to them about their day. You can use dad interviews to show off main lesson work if you want. You can do so many things that
so many things can dovetail into lessons, even if you're not expecting them to.
Absolutely.
But when we were joking about some of the times where I get
No, go ahead. Finish your sentence and then I'll read her message.
I think about some of the times where I let myself be silly in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that's definitely timing, and part of that's their age, because Soraya will think it's funny, and sometimes Sam will be like,
Wait, can't believe you act like that, Dad. What's wrong with you?
But it's about knowing the timing. You definitely don't want to do that like 10 minutes before people are getting in bed.
No, that's the
And
other thing.
definitely
I think
don't.
it's about like understanding like what the time and place.
Yeah, and they know that when you do mean business, that you do mean business.
No, I think that's true. I think that often dad kind of doesn't know what his role is, and so rather than like diving in there, he stays on the periphery and then is just the silly guy.
Mm-hmm.
Where if he is taking the temperature of the room, he knows whether or not it's the time to be the silly guy or whether or not it's the time to be like, no, we got to go to bed kind of guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so Marjorie says, happy individuals who contribute to society. That's perfect. Yes, that's like my mantra as a parent. That's what I want. And Rhiannon says, I personally feel that achievement-based success can sometimes lead kids to feeling that that's where their worth lies. Absolutely. Agreed. And I tend to want to avoid that, but then I think men can see it clearer if they, the Facebook controls are not so easy. Can see it clear if they're out in the workplace and they see how achievement-based success is important. I think too, one of the, I think it's an important conversation to have, because I do think that we live in a culture that is based on success. But one of the things that I see changing a lot is how that success comes about. So no longer is it that you have to get a doctorate in something to be a successful human being. We were raised in the time, we were probably the second generation of go to college. You have to go to college. That's the only way you're going to make any money. You've got to do that. That's it. Everybody is like, your whole school career is based on where you're going to go at the end to go to more school. Like the whole thing.
If you mess up, it's on your permanent record.
Right.
And if you like have one bad day, it might keep you out of going to the school you want to go to. And we live in a time now where college can still be important. I think it's very important for certain for certain jobs, of course. And I think we have new certificate programs. I was thinking our son is in a welding program where he's taking it out of college, but it's like a program where it's just geared towards welding. Our second son, and so, but it's not like it's like his father, not this guy. my ex-husband was like, you're gonna go and you're gonna be a computer guy just like me, and you're gonna and he that didn't make him happy. So he spent a lot of time here with us. Much to my ex-husband's chagrin, I'm sure. He was probably like, I can't believe these people talk this kid out of going to college. It wasn't that we did that. It was that I said, I want you to be a happy individual that contributes to society. However you do that does not mean you have to be wearing a tie every day and sitting at a desk. And so I think that really worked on him. And he went from, I'm going to go into IT, which doesn't make me happy, to, hey, I really like working with my hands. Welding is fun. I love welding. I can make a job at this, and sort of moving into that. And it's interesting because this child in specific,
has lived with my ex-husband since he was 14, and he's 19 now. And so he's, he's come to stay with us time and again, and he and I are really close. We talk a lot. And he is the child that, if you listen to any of our videos, has caused all these grays in my hair. He is a child he's also responsible for that part of gray.
That'll happen
in one day. And so this child that was very precocious and kind of rocky for a good part of his childhood is now like on this amazing path. And so I feel like that it's a path that that both he and I and my ex-husband contributed to. So, he's on this journey. And I think that if you only look at, well, what's the success, what's the end goal, I think that it does set people up for frustration, and it does set children up for failure, and in that they always think that that's their worth. But I also think that if we can look at goals a little bit differently, so I'm looking at success and I go, well, success to you, son, means that you want to be this like amazing welder in a shipyard somewhere in Portland. That's and they make crazy amounts of money. And so that's like, for him, that's his, like, that's what he wants. That's success for him. And if I allowed his father to think that his only success was to, be in the top 5% of his graduating class in college and like go on to do this IT career, then I wouldn't be doing my job as like helping that balance out. And so I feel like that we all have, as parents, we all have responsibilities to these kids. But then at the end of the day, I want you all to be prepared that they might do something that you don't like.
Yeah, so you don't like a lot.
It has anything to do with you. It has everything to do with the fact that they have their own agency, and that's their path that they think that they're on, and that they are going, and they're doing what they think is right. And even if you think it's wrong, be prepared. We have 3 adult children, and I swear to you, they're harder than the little ones.
Yes, by a factor of 10.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, what's funny, back onto the dad interviews,
yes,
is with him, with the son we're talking about. The first time I did that, we were undergoing a lot of strife because we were dealing.
And we were doing much more formal interviews at that time.
We were involved in either being in litigation or the threat of being sued.
With my ex-husband.
For a good chunk of
the first 6 years we were married, we were in litigation with my ex-husband.
So
we made it.
So the first time I did an interview with Jacob, and it was a much more formal one, but it took like a half an hour, but I had to stop it because
it was like giving you a list of everything.
It was like,
this
is how Harry and Ellie are messing up. And this is how it affects me.
Right.
And this is how it affects the whole family. And I just can't stand it anymore. And there's just a bunch of blankety blanks, and it just went on and on and on and on. And
he thought it was a great session.
And so then I thought, so you don't have any part in any of this? No. They're messing up, and you need to do something about it.
Oh my goodness. I was trying to think how old he probably was.
He was probably 6 or 7, maybe.
Oh, he had to have been older than that.
Maybe he was 8.
He had to have been like 8 or 9. Ellie was, no, he had to have been 10. He was 10.
When Ellie was little, and she's like, I just want everybody to be happy.
So you want to be wary of the dad interviews that turn into a grape session. I do listen, I listen to them because, often when children have grapes about other siblings, they're valid. But, something I might say, like I can remember an interview we had with Harry, not too long. Well, he was still living here. I think he was still living here. Yeah, he was still living here. And he was in our room, and he had said, I had told him that he was, he had been on a mission for 2 years, hadn't been around little kids, and that his temper was like shorter than it should be. He's like, but they're so annoying. I said to him, and so were you. He was like, what? I'm not annoying? I'm like, yes,
it did not occur to him.
But it was a great interview because he brought and he was an adult at the time, but he brought this frustration to us, and in our job it was to help him see it from a different light, to like change the perspective of it a little bit, which is what I think you were trying to do with Jacob that day. Like,
Yeah.
what's your part in all that?
Well, one thing that I've come across a lot is one sibling that's like, you should have come down a lot harder than
Oh, right.
you did.
They always think that the other person should have been punished harder than they were.
And there's been times where I go, what do you want me to do? Take them outside and beat them?
Let's go
And
flog
then they
them.
get
Would you like
quiet.
to come with me? Let's go flog them.
And then they get quiet when I say that.
Right.
It's probably not something I should say, but it's like, what is it that you expect?
No,
for me to
I
do?
think that it, while we don't invite them into the parenting process, I definitely think that it gives you a good sense of the temperature of their relationship when you ask them, well, what would you like? What do you think I should have
Or
done?
I say, you wouldn't be happy if I held you to that standard.
Right. And that's why I think it's an important
I
conversation.
turn it
to have.
back around on them because then
That's why I think it's an important conversation to have, especially as they start to really get opinions, like after 9.
Or is the thing that you think I should punish, is that actually hurting anybody?
Right,
No.
right. And I think they're important perspective conversations to have because, I think that they have to. They're seeing things through their lenses, and their lenses are absolutely correct for where they are and the age that they are, but we're sort of we're sort of softening that and going, well, wait a minute, let's look at this whole picture.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really necessary. Otherwise, we raise a bunch of narcissists.
Yes.
Nicole says, Eric, what do you usually say when it's time for the interview with a child? Do you just get them to own or on their own and start so that they don't know they're actually in an interview? Or do you say, let's go do our interview?
It just depends.
It depends. These days, it's a lot more informal.
It's
a
not
lot
as
more.
honest. I mean, you can have it be a set schedule where it's like that, but
Right.
sometimes it's like, hey, we need this at the store. Why don't you take this one with you?
Right. And I like that better, but I think that sometimes that's harder when you have more kids. So I think it depends on your situation, Nicole. I can't remember how many kiddos you have, but I think that if there's something that Super Sam is doing to annoy the crap out of me, I will say, your turn. Often what I'll say is, first of all, Eric and I have always had a conversation before interviews start. Always. Oh, so she's got 2. So we're always on the same page about what it is that he's going to talk to kids about. And it may be a week that he doesn't have anything major that he wants to talk to them about. Or it might be a week where he just wants to congratulate them on something that they did. And so we talk about that. We talk about it before, and then he might just grab a kid and take him to the store. But, I find that one of the things that's really good for us is that I really pay attention to things that Sam would take better coming from Dad than from me.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a really important skill as a parent, is to know your temperament, to know your child's temperament, and to take that into account when there are situations that might be sticky.
Yeah.
And a lot of it isn't like major disciplinary things, but there are times where I go, oh, this is like for instance,
There's times where you say to me, this is going to have to come from you, because if
Right.
it comes
And
from me, it's probably not.
it's not going to sound, or I'm going to mess it up, or I'm going to be harder on him than I need to be, or I think one of the things that, because you're both the same temperament, I think
Yeah.
that helps a lot. They're the same temperament. So if it's like a laziness issue with Samuel, Eric can go like, hey, dude, I know, I just want to sit on my butt all day too, but that's not the way life works. So he will take that piece of empathy from you that he wouldn't take from me, because I'd be like, why are you sitting on your butt all day? That kind of, it's a much different way we come about it. So I do think it's important that as parents, we are paying attention to how we're talking to our children and understanding their temperament, and at the same time then stacking those conversations with Dad in whatever way makes it more comfortable for everybody.
And then the thing to remember is the older they get, the least apt they are going to be to trust you. And that's just part of the nature of kids entering adolescence and teenager years. So some of the things that you can do when they're younger can pay off better later on, especially when it comes to dads that or other partners that may not be around so much.
Right. I want to mention, Nicole says here that would never, let's see, that never,
Oh, so like,
she doesn't want to split them up.
yeah.
Right?
Well, I
Okay,
have
so
times where Soraya's like, I don't want to go anywhere without Sam.
Okay, but I want to say something about that. And honestly, I have 5 children. In case y'all didn't remember, 5. And I can remember a conversation my mom had with me a long time ago, and I took it to heart, even though I didn't understand it or like it at the time. At the time, I only had 3. And she said, and this is because she was the stepmother to, my step siblings, who I love dearly, but she also watched as, at times everybody had to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And she made it a point to say to me, don't. And it wasn't because that was happening badly or anything like that. So I want to say that it wasn't like a criticism on my dad's parenting. It was more of you have a lot of kids. Make sure they're all individuals. Make sure that you give them opportunities to go in whatever directions they want to go, and don't always keep them together. Yeah. And so I would say, don't always keep them together. I would absolutely go, so sorry, she's going with dad now. You're hanging out with me. And then we go, oh, we're going to have mom time. That's also perfect time, especially if you've only got 2, you've got 1 in each place. And I think that's golden. If you've got if you're listening to this and you've got more than that at home, having that 1 out of the mix is also super helpful. It's 1 less body that you have to deal with. And you can then, take the rest of that time and spend with just the ones that you have at home. Don't be afraid to separate children and to allow them to go with a parent on their own.
Yeah.
It's a really good idea.
And I see a lot of resistance from Soraya about going anywhere without Sam with her.
Yeah.
But that's kind of gotten better.
He's like her minion, which is really odd because she's 7 and he's 12.
But that's gotten easier the more I've done it. The more I have separated them at times, the more she's pliable about it. But there was a point where it made her nervous about having him around. Mm-hmm. But I got that under control. Yeah. Now it's the morning time of morning.
Yeah, all the airplanes are coming. All the airplanes are coming now. Oh, Nicole says the kids get competitive about who gets to go. Well, okay. I love you. I want you to just hear me. Stop that. Just stop it. You have to say, sorry. Get over it. Get over it are the best words that I have ever adopted into my parenting.
Well, and it helps.
And does not come from a lack of empathy place. It comes from you know what? Life is hard. Let's walk on.
It is. But it helps to find some way to distract. If the
Absolutely.
kid's busy doing something, then they're not going to go, well, they must be doing something more fun than I am.
Right. They're going to buy milk. It's not fun. It's just, get over it. And I go, come on, you're going to help me out. I would ask, and I can see it would be much harder with just 2, but because we've had so many, I'm thinking about this paradigm of kids that are competitive when you just have 2. And you have to ask that competition piece because they will always be playing who's got my boob if you allow it.
Yeah.
And you don't want to allow it. So I would have a stern conversation that just in a family meeting that says, we're done with this competition stuff. You're great. You're great. You're both great. You're both going to do different things. We're going to walk forward.
Yes.
And I know there's this like natural piece of competition that often happens. But I would still do the best you can to sort of axe it. It's only for dad time because they don't see him much all week, is what Nicole says. I understand that. And so you want to make sure that they both have access to dad. And so I would say to the one that doesn't get to go, well, you'd like to have undivided dad attention, right? So let's let your sister go, and then you get to go. You get to both have time with dad. And if you make sure that in your case, I would make it a set time then every week, because then they know it'll happen.
And we aren't meaning they have to be separate all the time.
No, absolutely not. I'm just saying that you should not be afraid to take them one at a time.
Yeah.
They're not. One of the things that I think our children have appreciated is that they're not necessarily just the Nielsen herd. They're individuals. So, okay, she says that's good. Let's see what else. We had another comment up here. I thought we did. No, we didn't. Just a smiley face. I was trying to think of anything else. I like to pair the dad interviews with the idea of family council. I think
Yes.
that's really important because it sets the stage. It doesn't mean that they have to happen at the same time.
Yeah.
But is there anything else you think we missed?
I
Do we
don't
have any
think so.
questions about family council, dad interviews? I was trying to think if we've done a video on family council. I don't think we have. I think we should probably do a family council video. I think it's super important.
If we have, it's been a while.
I think it's super important. So I think we're done.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions? I think that it's super important. I think that one of the things that when I was a single mom that I really wished I had was the influence of dad. And I was not in that place with my ex-husband. He was not ready to, he's still not ready to take that to go, oh, I'll do that. But I think that when you have a willing partner that is willing to step in and go, hey, wait a minute, this isn't all on you. I want to make sure that I have a part in this, especially if dad works a lot, especially if he's got a busy work schedule. I think it's way, way, way important to have these dad interviews. And that means that you two have to communicate about what you want to make sure that he says during those interviews. That doesn't mean you script it. It just means you go, hey, Johnny's been a real jerk this week. Could you try to get to the bottom of that? Or Susie did great this week. Her reading is coming along and it's awesome. So you want to like make sure that you're having good conversations too. So I think that's all.
That's all.
All right, you guys. See you next week. I can't remember what we're talking about, but we're talking about something. Join us.
Bye.
Bye now.